Welcome back to the channel, you guys. I am coming back to you today to share my thoughts on Christopher Nolan's latest feature film adaptation, The Odyssey, which I have seen twice. Once on premiere weekend and second as of yesterday morning. I also want to introduce two new segments to the channel. The first is the trailer reel segment, and the second is the fit segment, which we'll get into when we get to them. And I want to give you all a little sneak peek into my experience of going to see The Odyssey for a second time in IMAX 70mm. So let's go ahead and get into all of that. Good morning, everyone. So I saw The Odyssey like premiere week. However, I wanted to rewatch it and see it again to solidify my thoughts. So I was like, oh, I should also just like pop my IMAX 70mm cherry with my rewatch, right? Because I've never seen a film in IMAX 70mm, and you know everybody's like all crazy about like seeing like Nolan films like IMAX 70mm, yada, all that, right? And so I went to go try to book a ticket for that. And obviously, if you're a cinephile like me, you know that you cannot get a 70mm showtime for like the next like 3 weeks, right? Because like they're sold out and all booked up, except for the 3 a.m. showings. So guess who is up right now at 1:10 a.m. getting ready to drive an hour to go to the only IMAX 70mm screen in the state of Georgia and, you know, watch The Odyssey at 3 a.m. Yeah, so already got dressed, already took a shower. Now I just need to brush my teeth and then get in the car. I'm also going to be picking up my friend Kaylin, who wanted to go as well, and then we will go watch the movie how it should be seen. So they're doing construction next door, so if you hear anything during this video that sounds like a saw going through wood, just know that that is not me, that is next door, that is out of my control. I don't know why the universe allowed that sound to occur while I was recording, but let's hope that it does not disturb this whole video, okay? So, the trailer reel segment. Yes, this is a new segment I want to implement because I wanted to come and give my thoughts or let y'all have some insight in regards to the trailers that I see before I go see all of these films that I plan to talk about. And if I don't see a film in the theaters and I see a film on streaming, I'll talk about like whatever promotional trailer was shown before that. And if neither of those occur, then I guess I'll just talk about like the trailer of the film itself, or maybe I'll just omit this segment sometimes. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. But I saw a lot of trailers for The Odyssey, so I want to go ahead and run through those for you in this segment today. So let's get to that list right now. First on the list is Primetime. So Primetime is the Chris Hansen film that stars Robert Pattinson, and he's playing Chris Hansen. And we don't really know the plot yet, but I guess since it's based around Chris Hansen as the host of To Catch a Predator, it's going to be about, you know, Chris Hansen maybe like sliding too far into the deep end in regards to like his hunt for pedophiles on the loose or whatever. So I'm always seated for that, and I am ready for it. I don't really need to see that trailer anymore. Like, I'm going to get my tickets as soon as possible and be seated on premiere weekend. The second trailer that played before The Odyssey was Spider-Man Brand New Day. I already got my tickets for Brand New Day, so there's really nothing to talk about in regards to that. What are my expectations for Spider-Man Brand New Day? I just want to be able to walk away from a Spider-Man film as I did when I walked away from Homecoming. I think I walked away from the Tom Holland Spider-Man films with the best feelings after Homecoming, which is like the first experience with with Tom Holland Spider-Man. And like ever since then, like I just walked away being like, oh, that was cool. I didn't really like No Way Home. I'm not really a No Way Home enjoyer at all. So I hope I at least walk away feeling better about Tom Holland Spider-Man or the MCU Spider-Man than I did with No Way Home. Whalefall. So Whalefall was the third trailer that played before this film. Whalefall, starring Austin Abrams and someone else who's playing his father in the film. It's basically like a Moby Dick esque type of adaptation. I really have nothing to say. Like, I'm gonna watch it. It looks cool. I like water. I like the ocean, so I'm gonna watch anything that's kind of occurring in the ocean. That's all I have to say on that. The next trailer that played was for Digger. Now, it wasn't a full trailer for Digger, I believe. I believe that they did like that other like whole like Tom Cruise like montage leading up to like what, 20 seconds of Digger footage before this film played. And I also have seen like the actual full trailer for Digger as well. And all I will say is like, it's corny, it's gonna be bad, and Tom Cruise better not get an Oscar nomination off of this film, as I believe that the people behind this film want, but also Tom Cruise himself wants, because it's just gonna be bad. Like, we just know it's gonna be bad. If you know film, like, you kind of know that film's gonna be bad. Sorry to say. The next trailer that played was By Any Means. Now, this is starring Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Mark Wahlberg. I don't want to see this film. I don't want to see this film because this film just looks like a knockoff fusion version of Green Book and Black Klansman into one. And it's trying to use that formula of like good cop, bad cop in the 60s or 50s or 40s with like the like not woke or socially conscious white guy, but like turn socially conscious like at the end of the story type thing. And it's trying to make it like into a comedy and make light out of it all. And it's just like, I don't need that. I personally don't need that. I personally won't be seeing that film, unfortunately. Now, the only thing that would make me go see that film is Nicole Bahari. And Nicole Bahari, I believe, is playing Yahya Abdul-Mateen's like love interest in the film. If that is true, I love Nicole Bahari. I actually do love Nicole Bahari, so I might go see the film because of that, but I can't put up with the concept of the film itself alone. Like, I need confirmation that Nicole Bahari is like actually being able to do something in this film. If she's not, then I'm gonna wait till it's on streaming and just skip to all the scenes that she's in. Like, legit, that's what I'm gonna do. Oddly enough, like, the next trailer that played was for a re-release of The Fast and the Furious, which was like, you know, a compelling trailer, as it always is. Like the first five Fast and Furious films like actually had good promotional tactics behind them and like actually like felt like true films. My question is just like, when is the 11th Fast and Furious film coming out? Because I think Fast X came out like literally 2021, I believe. Maybe even 2019. I don't even know. I just know that it was like 5+ years ago. And I saw that and that ended on a cliffhanger. And so like, let's get to that cliffhanger. And I believe I saw an article a few weeks ago that Vin Diesel like is partnering on with some streamer service, maybe Amazon, to do like a Fast and Furious like TV series. Like, let's put out the last final film before we do the TV series, especially because like the last film, the 10th film, ended on a cliffhanger. Like, what's going on here? Like, what is going on with that entire franchise? I don't know. Now, the second to last trailer that I played before the Odyssey was Focker-in-Law. I'm going to see this film. Even I've seen the first Meet the Parents. I've seen Meet the Parents when I was younger. And then I really didn't see Meet the Fockers, what I think is the second film. But I don't care. I'm just going to go see Focker-in-Law because it stars Ariana Grande. Like, that's literally the end of it. Like, I'm a major Ariana Grande fan, so I'm going to go watch Focker-in-Law because it stars Ariana Grande. And, like, that's my queen. Like, we're going to go support the queen. And last but not least, the last trailer that I saw before the Odyssey was Other Mommy, which stars Jessica Chastain and Jay Duplass, who I love. I love Jay Duplass. It just seems like another Jessica Chastain film, which means like it's gonna have a cool concept. She's gonna deliver enough for the film to be competent, but like it's not gonna be something that you talk about after a month or maybe like a day or two after you watch it. So yeah. So that concludes the trailer reel segment, and we're gonna move on to the actual film review. So, The Odyssey. The Odyssey is directed by Christopher Nolan. It is written by Christopher Nolan and Homer. It is produced by Christopher Nolan and his wife Emma Thomas and Thomas Hayslett. The cinematographer for The Odyssey is Hoyte van Hoytema, I believe is how you say his name. He's Swedish, so I don't really know the pronunciation of his name properly. Excuse me for that, Hoyte. But he is a cinematographer behind Tenet, behind Interstellar, behind Nope, behind Ad Astra. The film was composed by Ludwig Göransson. I feel like if you have watched any recent major film, or if like you've just been like tapped into the film industry in like this decade, you know who Ludwig is. The production company for this film is Syncope Incorporated and Universal Pictures. Now, this film has an all-star cast. It's star-studded from top to bottom. It stars Matt Damon as Odysseus. It stars Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Tom Holland as Telemachus, Himesh Patel as Eurycylus, I believe how you say the name, Robert Pattinson as Antonius, Corey Hawkins as Polybus, John Bernthal as Menelaus, John Leguizamo as Eumaeus, Elliot Page as Sinon, Mia Goth as Melantho, Benny Safdie as Agamemnon, Charlize Theron as Calypso, Zendaya as Athena, Lupita Nyong'o as Helen, and Samantha Morton as Cersei. Wow. The Odyssey is a film that I found to be everything that it was supposed to be. By that, I mean everything that comes with a Christopher Nolan film. And what comes with a Christopher Nolan film, right? So you always have a compelling lead actor because his films never star an actress. There's always an all-star cast to support said leading actor. You always have a story based around the conflict between man and time. There's always a dead wife or a dead woman of interest that thread throughout the story as motivation for the lead actor in question. And the third act ends up being triumphant for the leading character in question as well. And there's always a few like amazing set pieces sprinkled through the whole entire film, every single time. That's just what Nolan's gonna do, right? However, I didn't find this film to be like the perfect, amazing masterpiece that a lot of people in the film landscape say it is, or feel it is, or profess that it is currently. Before we get into what contributed to me like not finding this film as such a perfect, amazing masterpiece, let's get into what I do actually find valuable and great about the Odyssey. So let's go far back to when like I first encountered the Odyssey for the first time ever, right? And that's like about 10 years ago in high school in 10th grade literature class. It was a part of our reading curriculum, and I feel like most people encountered the Odyssey during grade school. If not, then like, you know, you were either reading something way better or you were in a different type of class than I was, or like we're just in different school systems and that's what happened, right? But that's how I ran into the Odyssey in my life. And I walked away from the film feeling similar but a little bit more confident in what I digested than when I read the book in high school. But not all that different. It's just an okay piece of material to me in general, and I feel like for the film it's like from the material perspective, like I feel like the story of the Odyssey in totality is still just like an okay piece of material. Like it's not a story that I personally rave about. I think a lot of what I find valuable and great about this film lies within the second act of this film and maybe like the first 10 minutes of the third act of this film. Now, Nolan's iteration of the Odyssey exists in this more like spiritual realm, in my opinion, rather than this like full-on mythology world where it's like, you know, pure fiction and there's no space for like human experience to really take hold, or this like full-on human realm where there's like, you know, it's concretely grounded in like the human experience and there's like no space for like higher powers to like be, you know, exist or to have credence. Which is a very intriguing choice in my opinion on Nolan's part, given that the story is based in Greek mythology, so it's very easy to just like sit up in that like full-on mythological realm, especially because we're in like the current time of the film industry where, you know, the beloved blockbusters of our time, but also like the most easiest films to get greenlit are those that are based on like pure fictional established IP. So when Nolan zags here with the Odyssey and he takes that platform for such a fictional IP blockbuster film and pulls it down into like this interim film space that he lives in, where like the blockbuster storytelling meets a more mature and like formal style of filmmaking to pose a very like intriguing concept to the audience on spirituality, that's very valuable in my opinion. Now, what spiritual concept am I referring to, you may ask? I'm referring to Zeus's Law, which is like constantly referred to within this film. In this film, Zeus's Law is essentially treating or welcoming strangers as you would want to be treated or welcomed, given that you simply don't know whether the stranger in front of you is a beggar or a god, right? And so this concept in the film is used to constantly question our characters, but ultimately the audience, on whether all that is occurring in this world, or the story I should say, is due to the manipulation and superiority of the Greek gods and how they allow humans to exist under their power, or is it due to humanity actually being the ones on Earth who determine how society progresses forward, and the consequences of believing our human choices and actions are without full volition because we are doing something under, the power of something else. And everything that occurs in the second act is used to propose such a questioning to the characters themselves, but also to us. So you have Odysseus's sea voyage back home to Ithaca and all the stops along the way. So you have the village they pillage, you have the Cyclops, the Laestrygonians, you have Circe, you have the Edge of the Underworld sequence, you have the Sirens, you have Scylla, you have the Sun God's cattle. And then you also have all the sequences or scenes that occur with Telemachus and Penelope's tribulations over the fate of Ithaca. And then you have like the fall of Troy sequences. And then ultimately you have Athena, who's played by Zendaya here, as a presence in this film herself. Now, to harp on that point, which I think is a really, really intriguing part of this film. Athena is constantly asking Odysseus in this film whether he's going to be wise enough to accept the faults of his choices and do what is necessary to get back to Ithaca and set everything in his life or existing around his life on the right path or not. And she is manifesting to Odysseus in this film as the embodiment of the brutally slain priestess he witnessed during the fall of Troy. Which in my opinion is tripling the layer of the messaging of this film that is proposed through the constant questioning here. So like the first layer here, you have Athena is actually physically proposing the questioning to Odysseus directly. And then the second layer is where you have Odysseus's life choices are inadvertently posing such questioning to Odysseus' family, right? His absence is causing them to question all these things that Athena herself is questioning to Odysseus. And then the third layer here is that like the truth of the matter of Athena being the embodiment of the slain priestess is posing the question to the audience in the form of basically making us have to determine whether we believe Athena the god actually exists here, or if the manifestation of Athena the god is simply just like post-war trauma for Odysseus, and he has to find his way through his post-war trauma so then he can get clarity and return back home, right? And I find that format of, delivering the messaging to the audience here to be so valuable because as an adamant agnostic person in this world, that sort of messaging speaks to me very deeply because I believe that in this film, Odysseus is assuming the role of like an agnostic person in the world, especially because you have all those scenes where like he's referring or he's speaking to people and he's saying like your God, or he's saying like their God, or all of your gods and things like that. And like he's not really subscribing to everybody else's full-on belief in the Greek gods, but then he's also sitting there and he's also like holding the Athena pin, right? Which is kind of like a cross necklace to a certain extent. And he's talking to Athena in his brain. So like he's also not like fully throwing out the concept of the gods' interference in his life or the role that they play in his life. And I think like that constant questioning of like, is there a higher power? Are the things that are occurring, are they like just naturally occurring outside of human control? Or are all of us humans just making choices that we shouldn't be making, right? That's like constant, like an agnostic person's existence in the world. And I'm not saying like religious people don't have that experience at all, but like religious people are more so on the side of like, there are answers here, or they're like, no, they're more so on the side of like, there aren't any concrete answers here and we have to give it all up to this higher being. And then you have people who are on the atheist side, totally, who are like, there's no answers here, it's just humans and humans are horrible and like they mess up everything. And then like, when you're somebody like me who's like agnostic, you're kind of in the center, you're kind of just trying to be like, hey man, we do not have the answers, but we got to figure it out regardless, and we're going to figure out a way to figure it out, but I'm not going to stand on either sides of the line here. The other sequence in this film that I feel impacted me just as deep as the character of Athena, and also occurred in the second act of this film, was the entire Edge of the Underworld sequence, right? So here we have Odysseus and his men have docked on the edge of the underworld, and they're told to go here so they can get the prophecy for their voyage forward and learn how to get home, essentially. Now, first of all, this sequence is like beautiful in my opinion. I really love the sequence. It's very dark and gray. It's on like this like black sand beach. I believe it was filmed in Ireland, so I love this. I love overcast weather. Like I just really am a gray person. Like you see, I'm wearing a gray shirt. Like I just love the color gray. The color gray is my favorite color, and so I love overcast weather because it's just like gray. Like the environment is gray out here, and it just like really speaks to my heart. Like I'm just a very like I don't know. I just like very sad things to a certain extent. I love sad music. I love depressive things. I love sad movies. I love things like that. So like that whole sequence, that whole scene was just very like I want to sit on that beach. Like I want to sit on that beach and just vibe out on that beach, right? No, you don't agree? Okay, never mind. But then also you have like these levitating movements that are occurring. So all of like the people who aren't human on, the edge of the underworld island, they're like levitating towards them. They're not really walking or moving or crawling. They're like kind of sliding about. I love that choice on Nolan's part. And I also love, like, they have to make a trench with a blood sacrifice. So like they kind of like dig a little hole to like put a shield in, and like they slit like 2 goats' throats and let them bleed into the shield, right? And I love that in particular because I love that that is the gateway for the dead basically to talk or have conversation with the living, where they have to go and like drink from that trench, and then they're able to speak to Odysseus, right? And in this sequence, basically, Odysseus is coming here to get clarity, but he doesn't really know that he's going to meet Sinon here, but he's also going to meet Agamemnon here as well. Which is very interesting to me because it's the first scene in the film where we really truly kick off Odysseus confronting his own like reconciliation with his actions, in my opinion. Like prior to this, there's a few sequences with his men where he's like kind of understanding like, people aren't messing with my ideas, but I think he still has like that big hubris, especially because he rescued them from Cersei. I think he has like this big hubris still, or like this big like, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about, I'm the leader here, like persona. But then when he gets to the edge of the underworld and people who he respects, right, his subordinate in Sinon, somebody who he's made decisions for his whole life, and that person died directly due to Odysseus' decisions on him, right? Human decisions, pure human decisions. And then you have his commander, Agamemnon, who died due to, the gods' decisions, kind of like he sacrificed his daughter, and he made this big, like this sacrifice to the gods, and what you're supposed to do for the gods. If you want something back, you're supposed to give sacrifice to the gods. And that ended up being his end. That's the end of what caused him to die. Him actually living life by the gods, right? And so it's two parallels, or not parallels, two sides of the same coin, I would want to say, in regards to this questioning that the film wants to ask the audience of like, what is the truth of the matter here, and what is the best way to go forward in regards to like Odysseus' journey and how to get back on track, but also like humanity. Like, what is the proper way to go about existing in the world is what the film really wants to question here. And I think the character of Athena, or the presence of Athena, or the portrayal of Athena, everything doing with Athena, and then everything to do with the edge of the underworld, like just for me combined to make like just like the best pieces of this film. And that's why the second act is so important to me. It's so important to me. I loved it. Now, outside of those two sequences, or those two things in the film being great and valuable to me, I think the only other thing to me that I would say is like great about this film that I truly will rave about is the Cyclops sequence. So I saw this film twice, as I told y'all, and both times seeing this film, the Cyclops sequence quality did not drop at one point. The exhilaration of that sequence, nor the fear, I would say, in that it embeds itself into you when you're watching that sequence, or just the fascination also, because it really is a technical feat as well, doesn't slip at all. I'm so intrigued by that, and I kind of wanted like more lore in regards to that. Also, I don't know if y'all noticed, but like when it comes to the Cyclops sequence, in the first trailer for this film, they have a whole like Odysseus and his men running down like the grass side of the Cyclops Island, and then like that scene is like not in the film at all. And I was like waiting for that to pop up. Like I didn't see it when I first saw the film, and I was like, maybe I missed that. Maybe I blinked. Maybe I blinked too hard. And then when I saw it for a second time in IMAX 70mm, it wasn't there. And I was like, oh, I guess that wasn't good enough. I guess for Nolan, that wasn't good enough. Maybe it was like we were too many minutes across, like, for the runtime that was approved. I don't know, but it got cut out, and I kind of needed it there. I just needed like a few more, like I just needed like a minute more of like the Cyclops sequence, because I thought that was so good. So, okay, so now that I've gotten, all my praise out the way, let's get around to like my main points of contention with this film, right? So when it comes to my main points of contention with the Odyssey, I would have to say, let's just start first. Let's start first with the third act. Now, the third act of this film never truly plateaus for me. From like the end of the second act, it just keeps going down. It just keeps going down, like in energy. Like the energy just keeps dropping. And I was hoping that we were gonna like find somewhere to like land and like float until the end. But it's just like, after we leave the underworld, I would say the edge of the underworld, after the edge of the underworld, I would say after the sun god's cattle scene, from there we're just like downhill. And then especially like after Odysseus, that's what it is. After Odysseus and Calypso finally part ways, after Odysseus sets his voyage on home, from there it kind of just like drops, and like it doesn't need to drop because like so much more happens after that. Like after Odysseus gets back to Ithaca, so much more happens there. But the beats are just not anywhere near as compelling as any of the beats in the second act, in my opinion. Outside of like the revelation conversation for like who Athena actually is when Odysseus is talking to Penelope for the first time when they're back, outside of that scene, every other beat in like the third act don't really hit for me. And like, what beats am I talking about? So you have like Eumaeus and Odysseus meeting again. Didn't really care about that. Like I didn't care about that. Like, okay, I also like, I get he's old and he could barely see, and I know that they're in a far time before our time. But in my opinion, Odysseus left Eumaeus when he was like 30 years old, right? Let's just, that's giving grace, 30 years old. and he knows Odysseus' voice. Odysseus has been gone for 20 years, I get that. But there's no way that Odysseus comes back. He sounds just the same. Odysseus sounds just the same. There's no way he comes back and you can't hear that that's Odysseus' voice. Like, that kind of blew me for a second. Like, and you're talking about this person as your son. Like, you think of this person as your son? Okay, that blew me. That blew me. And then you have the Telemachus rescue scene, right? Cool. That was cool. But it's also just like, Telemachus is like pathetic. And so there's just like another scene of like, boy, you still pathetic, boy? Like, you still pathetic? And then you have like the final feast scene, which is fine, but then like it's just like a little too dramatic for me, like the whole dog kicking scene and all of that, and then like, you know, throwing the chair at Odysseus, Antinous throwing the chair at Odysseus, and then you have like, you know, Telemachus coming and be like, this feast is over. That scene looked like a video game to me. Like, Tom Holland's, like, they had to take a little bit of makeup off of his face. I don't know why, but I've seen that scene twice, and it was just like so like, it was just like, stop being serious right now, Tom. Like, please, like, Telemachus, I mean, stop being serious right now. This is not good. And then you have like Penelope's challenge, like the whole Penelope's challenge scene. It was fine, but I just didn't think the strum of the bow scene, and then Penelope turns around, like after she has a tear coming down, she turns around and is like, my man's here. Like, I just didn't feel like that. Like, it didn't give me like, ooh. It didn't give me that. It may have given you that, but it didn't give me that, right? And then from then on, like the whole final battle sequence with like all of the suitors in the like quarters, like that really didn't do anything for me, because like, okay, Odysseus is just whooping them up and down. Even when they get, like, he's getting stabbed and it's not affecting him or anything like that. There's no point, obviously I knew the story. There's no point where I felt like, oh, he might die. And I kind of wanted to feel like he might die here, but he didn't. And then like, even like when he stabs Antinous, it's just like, okay, Antinous is gone. He really wasn't here, but he's gone now. Cool, understand, the villain has been defeated. And then you have like Telemachus upstairs fighting with like the little like, you know, like snitch, traitor, like, you know, servant guy. And Telemachus can't even beat him up. And I'm like, you was just sparring with the huge like 7 foot tall warrior at the beginning of the film. But you can't beat this little servant dude who like probably never has battle trained in his life. Like, Telemachus, come on now. Like, what are we doing? And then the final send off like of the entire film on the ship docks, that whole like trying to like fake out Odysseus' death, it didn't work. Like I just told you, like I didn't feel like Odysseus was dying. I didn't feel like Odysseus was dying. So when he falls down and Penelope's like, don't die on me, you just got back, no. And like they're trying to do this whole fake out where like they're doing this montage of like Telemachus and like Penelope's crying. He's like walking her to a ship and he like lets her on the ship by herself. And it's like, as if like she's just giving up. And like, that doesn't really make sense like to be like compelling to like the audience, because like she just told us like literally 20 minutes ago that she's like, I run this. She's like, I run LA. Like Penelope literally was like, I run LA. Like Telemachus got my face. I run LA. Like these people can't do it like I do it. But she's like, I run Ithaca. And like, so like what in our heads, like if Odysseus, like, I don't understand, like if Odysseus died, she wouldn't be able to just like go away. Like that's just not what would happen. So I don't know what they were trying to do there. Maybe some people it got some people it didn't get me. And then like the film just like goes off from there, and it's just like, okay, that's over. Now I did just like, you know, throw a lot of dirt on the third act, but I think what's even worse than the third act, because the third act, even though it's plateauing, like it's not plateauing, even though it's not plateauing, it just keeps going downward. It's that end point is still higher than where we started with this film. The first act of this film is where I most struggled with my experience with the Odyssey, both times, right? Why? We start the film off with Travis Scott. In like what, box braids? Like he's in a wig or box braids? Confused. He also has, you know, veneers on. It's like, okay. He also is just like talking in like the most like, you know, basic like kindergarten, you know, speech recital way ever. Like, dum dum dum, Odysseus, dum dum dum, a man, dum dum dum, at sea. Like it's like, okay, I guess Travis Scott's here. And it kind of pissed me off because I hate when like people do this. I hate when we do this. Why are we giving roles to celebrities who don't act, who have no intention of being an actor? Travis Scott has no intention of being an actor. He's not serious about any of this. He can't act. when there's so many other people who want to act and be in films, and there's so many young stars, like you want to put a black person in here, Christopher Nolan, let's take like, I don't know, take Kelvin Harris Jr., like Kelvin Harrison Jr., like please pluck him. I don't know, pluck anybody. Like there's so many people you could pluck and put at the forefront of your film and like actually do something for their film career. Travis Scott is a millionaire. He will never be broke again. Like he doesn't need this at all. It just pissed me off both times I watched the film. I'm sorry, it just did. Another thing is that like the editing of the first 20 minutes of this film is crazy. The editing is crazy. It's probably the worst editing I've seen in a Nolan film, honestly. Like all the conversations between Telemachus and Antinius in like the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, is very like back and forth, flash. I'm like, oh. My first experience, I was like, oh. I literally said to myself when I watched it for the first time, I was like, I literally just like went back and forth. Like that's crazy. Like that caught me off guard because Nolan usually comes straight 100% when it comes to the technical pieces. So I'm just like, okay. And also like the writing is just wonky for the first act. Like the writing is just wonky for the first act. It's very Ithaca heavy. Like everything that's going on in the first act is really Ithaca heavy. And the writing really doesn't get on track until that first time when we see Odysseus on that beach, right? Because before we see Odysseus on that beach, we have all of these conversations being had in Ithaca, or like even like not in Ithaca, because we have that scene with Sinon where he's like, you know, presenting the Trojan horse to the Trojans or whatever. And there's like no substance in these conversations. A lot of words are being said, but really not a lot of words are even being said. But even the words that are being said, there's no substance to them. Like they just don't hit you. They don't strike you. None of the conversations in the first act, at least, they don't strike you deep. They don't hit you in any way. You don't remember that. Not really. Not unless you're just like a Nolan bro and like everything that Nolan puts in his films, like you just, you know, sign your life away to like understanding, reciting, and repeating. It just didn't hit for me. And ultimately, there's just really no meat on the bones when it comes to the writing of this film. And that kind of brings us over to like my next point of contention, the performances in this film. I don't feel like there's any performance in this film to like really exalt, to really rave over, to really be like, ooh, that performance. But did you see them in the Odyssey? Like there's no performance in this film where I'm gonna be like, did you see them in the Odyssey though? You saying they can't act, but did you see them in the Odyssey? No performance in this film that I'm gonna do that for. Let's just run through the performances at this point so that I can give you all my thoughts of why that's not occurring in this film. Okay, so first up, we have Matt Damon as Odysseus. Now, Matt Damon as Odysseus is perfectly fine in my opinion. I personally wanted a more attractive, appealing Odysseus to look at. Like if we're watching an epic and like somebody's at the helm of the story and like they're gonna have their shirt off half the time, like I want to at least be like, ooh, but like Matt Damon doesn't do that for me, and he honestly has like never done that for me. I don't remember a time where like I looked at Matt Damon in a film and been like, yummy. But that really doesn't matter here because I don't think Matt Damon ruined this character portrayal, and I don't think Matt Damon did a disservice to the character of Odysseus at all. I think Christopher Nolan's Odysseus is very noble and mature, and I think Matt Damon is very noble and mature and knows how to convey maturity and nobleness through his performances. And so I think Damon did exactly what needed to be done in this film. Did he do more than that? No, in my opinion. Do I feel like there could be somebody else who was better than him in this film? Yes. But I also feel like potentially that's a different film. And I'm fine with what we got. So I'm just going to say like Matt Damon did really good here. Anne Hathaway as Penelope, she's doing what needs to be done as well. But there's like 5 more minutes that are needed with Penelope because I feel like a lot of Penelope's emotionality wasn't able to really be conveyed to the audience or delivered to the audience in like a very impactful way is what I'm trying to say. There's always these conversations where like Penelope, there's an immediate build of the emotionality, and then like we jump straight to like the raw 100% emotionality, right? And so you have these conversations where Penelope sons Telemachus kind of, right? Where she's like, you know, I want your father back. And then he's like, well, why can't I just be king? And she's like, you're a little boy. But like, I feel like in that scene, we needed either a little bit more like pluckiness and like annoyance on the Telemachus front for us to understand like, you know, Penelope just turning around and being like, you can't be the king, little boy. Or we just needed a little bit more explanation from Penelope to get across like the annoyance that she had with him. And then also like when you jump to the third third act of the film. You have that conversation where Telemachus comes back and he's like, obviously he's like trying to trick Penelope here into doing something, but he's like, I think you should just go ahead and like forget about dad and like marry off one of these guys so that I can kill them and become king. And she is like, you know, going on this like great form, like this great like part of dialogue for Penelope, but she's just like, oh yes, I have to go ahead and like, you know, sacrifice all of my agency so then all of these little men, including you, can have exactly what you want, is to rule this throne. But she's like, I've been on the throne for 20 years and I've done it perfectly fine. But you know, we live in a man's world, so I can't have that. And then she's just like, I want Odysseus. And it's like, it works, but it could have been so much better if they were just like, I swear it could have been so much better if we had like 2 more minutes of that scene between them going back and forth, or if we just had like 5 more minutes throughout the film of showing like Penelope's frustrations rising. I feel like we kind of like left Penelope after about like the beginning of the second act, and like we come back to her in this third act, and I kind of like, we need just a little bit more. We just need a little bit more, in my opinion, from her. But I love Anne Hathaway, and I think Anne Hathaway is utilized wonderfully. I think Anne Hathaway is utilized very well by Christopher Nolan in his films, especially because Christopher Nolan is known for not really portraying his women or female characters properly on screen. And I think every time that Anne Hathaway has been in one of his films, she's done a great job. And so I'm going to give it to her here and say that she did a really good job, just as Matt Damon did as well. Now, for the most controversial performance in the film, we have Tom Holland as Telemachus. Now, before this film came out, and when people have like early screenings and got like, you know, premiere releases and were putting out their articles and their reviews before the embargoes were out, or like right when the embargoes came out, I guess, most of those critics were saying that Tom Holland's performance was so bad and so lacking that most of the actors in this film were doing laps around him in terms of performance. When I first watched this film, I was very confused by that rhetoric because no one is lapping Tom Holland in this film. No one is lapping Matt Damon in this film. Matt Damon is not lapping anybody in this film, in my opinion. Like, I just don't see this like big, huge chasm between like Tom Holland's performance and like everyone else's. Like, that's just not what's occurring here. Like, I believe it was like Variety or Vulture or somebody, they like put out a list of like best ranked performances in like, you know, the Odyssey, which they did on purpose because they knew that people already were shitting on Tom Holland's performance, right? And they want to get like clickbait and rage bait. And they put Tom Holland at the top of the article at number 17 because they're like, oh, he's the worst. And everybody like went crazy over that, right? Because you have like the Tom Holland fans who are like, oh my gosh, y'all are so hard on Tom Holland. Tom Holland's just like the sweetest boy. He does nothing and y'all hate on him. And then you have the people who like truly hate Tom Holland for, I don't know why, because he doesn't really do anything. He's not really that offensive to anybody. And being like, Tom Holland sucks. He needs to have his career stripped from him. We need to stop calling him a movie star X, Y, and Z. Now, in my opinion, I think Tom Holland is doing perfectly fine in this film. I think the portrayal of his character is very apt. Telemachus is very plucky, he's very naive, he's very weak, he is very disappointing as like a leader. And I think that's how we all feel about Tom Holland as an actor. And so I kind of want to give kudos to Christopher Nolan for casting somebody who kind of already had that portrayal built into them and that perception built into them, which allows for us to come into the movie, in my opinion, or allows for him to have an audience come to his movie and him not have to build up Telemachus's character or persona that much because it's already built into like the character through the actor who's portraying him, right? So it's kind of very smart, in my opinion. I think it was a very apt performance, and that's all I'm going to say on that. Hamish Patel as Eurylochus, right? I have no notes here. Put Hamish Patel in more things. I want to see him in a lot more things. I do know that he is going to be starring in the X-Files series done by Ryan Coogler soon and starring Danielle Deadwyler, which is very pleasing to me because I am a Station 11 hive. If you have not watched Station 11 on HBO, go watch that. It stars Hamish Patel and Danielle Deadwyler. I love that series, and I just want to see Hamish Patel in more things. Please put him in more things. Robert Pattinson as Antinous. I was extremely neutral on Robert Pattinson's performance in this film. I know there's people who are very high on it, but I think it's because they're just very high on Robert Pattinson right now. Like, Robert Pattinson really is like top 10 most beloved movie stars right now, I would say, in Hollywood. People really love Robert Pattinson, and I really do like Robert Pattinson, but I just feel like in this film, like, he's not being served well by the script at all. He has nothing to do in this film. He really has nothing to do in this film. Obviously, you know, people are like laughing at like the whole like somebody get these beggars out of here scene. And I think that's hilarious, right? It is hilarious because like after that meme started going around and then I saw it the second time after the meme started going around, I found it hilarious. I was actually waiting for that scene to happen again so I could laugh like internally in the theater, and I did internally laugh because of that. But at the same time, it's like, if that is like the best part if that's the best part of his performance in my perception, then like that's not good. It's not good. Now, Robert Pattinson has 2 other films coming out this year. He has Primetime and then he has Dune Part 3, which I do think are going to both be better performances. One, because Primetime he's the lead actor, so he's going to have way more to work with there. But 2, Dune 3 is just Dune 3. He's gonna deliver better and be more interesting in that film. Already you could tell by like his physique and his like physicality in that film that he's gonna be way more interesting than he is here as Antinous in the Odyssey. I also just believe that like Robert Pattinson in the drama was just way more interesting as a character and a performer than in the Odyssey. I know a lot of people aren't high on the drama and they're high on the Odyssey, but I'm more high on the drama than I am on the Odyssey, if I'm being completely honest, which might sound crazy to a lot of people, but to me, no. I'm sorry, that's just like how I feel. Corey Hawkins as Polybus, I believe is how you say his name. It was a pleasure to see Corey Hawkins in this film. I want him in more things as well. I have like no notes on Corey Hawkins either. I think Corey Hawkins is probably like the best, after like the leading cast, I think he's like definitely the best male actor of the ensemble cast, or he might just be the best actor of the ensemble cast in general. Honestly, I have no notes. I was honestly very pleased with his performance. And then you have John Bernthal, who I wasn't very pleased with, who's playing Menelaus here. And like, the reason why I wasn't very pleased with John Bernthal's portrayal or just like performance in this film is because John Bernthal for like the past 10 years, or, you know, give or take, has been on the same like shtick of performance where he's like very like abrasive, grunty, growly, and like kind of country, but kind of like rockish, and like it's like very like Harley Davidson-esque persona. And after watching the Odyssey for a second time, I started to ask myself, is this not like a shtick? Like, is this actually who John Bernthal is? And like, he just is very reserved, like on camera outside of a film or a TV show. And then like, this is who he is behind closed doors. And he's just putting that to us. And like, he's kind of hiding his true personality. So like when we see him act out his true personality on screen, it's like a performance to us, but it really isn't a performance. Like, is that what's occurring here? Because I want something different from John Bernthal. Like, I do. I want John Bernthal to give me something different. Like, please do something different. After seeing him in The Bear this year, and after seeing him in, you know, Daredevil, and after seeing him in The Odyssey, I'm just like, give me something different, John. Please, I'm begging you. Like, that's all I'm asking for. Then we have John Leguizamo playing Eumaeus here. Now, I already told y'all that like I find Eumaeus' scenes in this film to be a little bit ridiculous. I also just wasn't a fan of John Leguizamo in this film at all. I feel the performance here is very gimmicky. I feel it's very caricature-esque. I think this film is very, to make a comp for this film and how I perceive it, I perceive this film as I perceived Benicio del Toro in One Battle After Another, right? Where it's given this very like performance of like, you know, 30 years ago, where if this performance was occurring on screen 30 years ago, people would love it. They'd be like, oh my gosh, this is a movie star. This is how traditional movie stars, you know, act in film. But we're not 30 years ago, we're 30 years past that. And so I don't find value in those things. And if you're somebody who does, then you're gonna love that performance, because I think it's like very like, it's just like very nostalgic for a lot of people to see performances like that. And to me, it's not nostalgic at all, and it's not pleasing, and it borderlines a clown behavior in my opinion. Every scene with him, because like, it's just ridiculous, like the concepts behind the scenes that are occurring with Eumaeus in this film. Every scene with him just felt clownish. Like, you're acting like you're blind, but you're not blind. And then like, you're acting like you're old and crippled and like can't really move, but you can move and you can work a farm. And then like, you're doing this whole like, when like Odysseus comes back, he's doing this whole like, Odysseus is like the greatest, I just need Odysseus back or whatever. And he's doing all this stuff, and it's just like, or like when he gets caught listening to Antinous and like Polybus and all of them talking and stuff like that. It's just all just like, Grandpa, go sit down. Grandpa, go sit down. You too old, Pop. Like, go sit down. Now, I will give him credit. Like, As the character, Eumaeus, when he closed that door on little servant snitch dude, loved that. Sorry, I can't remember that character's name, but loved that scene, obviously. But like, okay, you got one layup. You got one layup during the game. I'm not really gonna like let you stand up on the stage after the championship. Like, that's not really what's gonna happen here. So sorry, John Leguizamo's performance in this film just did not gag it for me. Elliot Page. So we have Elliot Page here as Sinon. Now, I love Elliot Page. I'm very glad that Nolan has finally brought Elliot Page back into the fold of his filmography after Inception. It's been a while, right? It's been about 10 years after Inception. Inception came out in like what, 2010, I think? So it's been a while since Inception. So maybe it's been 15 years. So thankful that Elliot Page is now back into the fold. I wouldn't like Elliot Page's performance in this film if it weren't for the Edge of the Underworld sequence, which stars Sinon. And so Sinon, Elliot Page, they get cookie points here. But however, in the Edge of the Underworld sequence, I still didn't feel like that performance like did what it was supposed to. And the reason why I feel that way is because Sinon is a figure in this film that's supposed to be very charismatic, in my opinion, and pulling your heartstrings. It's supposed to be one of those characters that like are a big emotional draw for our lead character, Odysseus, right? Odysseus is basing a lot of his like morality and like his reconciliation with his actions on Sinon's death. And the two scenes that we have, 3 scenes in totality, right? With Sinon, we have the first 2 scenes, which is Sinon and the Trojan horse, and then you have Sinon and Odysseus. Odysseus seeing Sinon off, and then you have Sinon in the Edge of the Underworld. Those first 2 scenes do not do enough to build this like persona of Sinon being like this like, you know, very emotionally, you know, influential character on Odysseus, in my opinion. And so then we get to the Edge of the Underworld and he's like, oh, you did this to me, you know, it's all your decisions, X, Y, and Z. I totally get it from the Odysseus standpoint because we've done enough in this film to build up Odysseus's like internal turmoil and all of that stuff and like this pushing him over the edge. Totally understand that. From the Sinon perspective, don't really care because I'm just like, I just don't have enough information to understand like how you really got duped. And so then I can't really give you grace if you're not, you know, showing us why like I should give you the grace with the character in general. So that's just why like I was very moot on Elliot Page's performance here. So Mia Goth as Melantho. Mia Goth is here as Melantho. Benny Safdie as Agamemnon. Now, I love the portrayal of Agamemnon in this film. For some reason, I don't know if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong. When I was a kid reading the Iliad and the Odyssey and watching Troy, I got the perception that Agamemnon was this very like brutish, like tyrant figure and very like nasty and unattractive and unappealing, like you know, just like disgusting in any way possible from a personality perspective. And so when I come into this film and Agamemnon is seen as like deity-esque figure, I was enthralled, honestly. I was really enthralled. So much that I had to ask myself, like, do I have a crush on Benny Safdie? Because I was really like, oof, Agamemnon, he looked good. Like, Agamemnon looked good. Mind you, his face is not being shaped. It's only his body and his hair. And so I'm just like, what is it about Benny Safdie that is just so alluring for me? Because like, if you watch my One Battle After Another video, when I did the rankings and talked about Licorice Pizza, I told y'all I loved Benny Safdie in Licorice Pizza. I like Benny Safdie in Oppenheimer. I think Benny Safdie is doing a good job in Oppenheimer. And I like Benny Safdie in this film. I really do like Agamemnon in this film. And so I'm just like, do I have a crush on Benny Safdie? Or like, is Agamemnon just really like this, like, did they execute Agamemnon like on the top tier of like character executions? I think both of those are true. Like, I think both of those are true. I think I do have a little slight crush on Benny Safdie, and I do think Agamemnon is like excellent level character execution in this film. I think Agamemnon being the poster child for this film was very smart because Agamemnon is the prettiest like thing in this film from from an action perspective, in my opinion. That whole like matte black helmet with like the black stallion hair on the top, and then on the back it's like this golden spine skeleton going down to like his neck, and then you have like this very like matte black like, you know, like armor, and like this very like fluffy and like luxurious like cloak, black cloak on the back of him. It was just very like, oof, like that's a man. Like he run point. Like he the leader of the group. Like girl, like I want a man who was the leader of the group. Like that's who I want. And that's how I felt about Agamemnon. I was just like so enthralled by the character. So bravo to Christopher Nolan for portraying that. But I think also like what I was trying to get about with the poster child of this film, like all of that, like Agamemnon looks really pretty. And like the first poster of this film is Agamemnon's like back, like the back of Agamemnon. And I think a lot of people who just don't know really about the Odyssey, because a lot of people don't know about the Odyssey when they saw this film, probably thought that that was going to be Odysseus. But no, that's not Odysseus. That's Agamemnon. Oh, also, when we have the fall of the Troy scene, and I gagged a little bit when Odysseus threw the flame over the wall of Troy, and then all of the soldiers were there, and then when they opened the gates of Troy, Agamemnon was standing there just like aura farming the house down. Like he's aura farming crazy, and I'm just like, this is so good. Like this is so good. Like honestly, I wish we had more things like that in this film, because I would be raving about this film way more if we had more things like that with character execution in this film as we did with Agamemnon. So that's how I feel about that. Charlize Theron as Calypso. So, Mama had to come get her little check and serve shoreline realness. That's what Charlize came to do. She came to get her little check and serve shoreline realness. She was like, I'm gonna be on a pretty little beach this whole time. I have my feet out, cool water, sun blazing. I got some fish in my hand, a little fishnet fit on, serving face. Like, she probably was there for like 2 days. Like, Charlize probably was on set for like 3 days, 2 days. Love this for her. I feel like Calypso is executed perfectly fine in this film. Honestly, people have issues with it. They're like, I hated that. I hated her. I hated whatever was going on with Calypso in this film. Understandable, I guess, because there's not really a lot going on. So who am I to retort against that? But at the same time, I do feel like if I had any criticism in regards to Calypso, it is that there should have been I think 2 more minutes between that last revelation conversation between Odysseus and Calypso. I feel like we need a little bit more to understand that they truly have a relationship. It's not really one-sided, but also just to understand that he is leaving something here. He's leaving her, and she's upset about it, but she's letting him go. And I think there's just a little bit more tension I wanted from that. Maybe I just wanted a little bit more romantic drama in this, and given that Penelope and Odysseus are far apart from each other the whole time, and so Penelope's strife and her anger towards Odysseus is separated from Odysseus' whole film, and when she finally sees him, it's all joy and love. But I feel like if they were in each other's faces more often, she would have had more gripes and grievances with him. But given that we only had that romantic dynamic between Odysseus with Calypso here, which I believe is a change, because I believe Odysseus is kind of a man whore, in the original Odyssey. I remember when we were in high school, my high school teacher used to allude to that. She was like, oh, and Odysseus is staying with the sirens, or oh, Odysseus, or not staying with the sirens, but he's enthralled or something like that. But then or Circe, the whole Circe thing, things like that. But then also the Calypso thing. I just remember when I was a younger person that the persona of Odysseus was that he kind of himbo-ish. He's very whorish, but also very buff, but also very stupid and hubris and prideful and all this all of that. So I just wanted a little bit more from Charlize here, but we didn't get it. That's fine. It's totally fine in my opinion. Zendaya as Athena. So as I already said, I can't really do a lot of talking about this performance because there's really not a lot to go off of. She has 4 scenes in this film, and she says 6 lines totally. But I think the character alone of Athena is so special to me that I'm just gonna go ahead and give cookie points to Zendaya and be I think Zendaya did totally fine. I have no notes on Zendaya. I think she did totally fine. I love that character so much, and I love what that character represents. I love how Nolan utilized that character to do so much for that film. And so I'm just gonna inadvertently give the points that I'm giving to Nolan to Zendaya for the character of Athena, and also just choosing to be a part of a major film and be on set for 2 days and come shoot her little films on the beach with Matt Damon and Christopher Nolan, and then go kiss Tom Holland goodbye, and then go back on the plane, go home. Respect. I respect that girl. Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy, but also as Clytemnestra, who is Helen's twin, I believe. I loved Lupita in this film. I really did. She's not doing a lot, obviously, so like my love is just me like loving watching Lupita on the screen. But you know, I think like everything that happened with Helen in this film, and like you know the reveal of like them marking up Helen's face because like the war was done for the face of Helen, things like that. And then also everything that happened with Agamemnon and you know Helen's twin sister in this film. I love that little like you know snap go twist because it also occurred during the Edge of the Underworld sequence. So like everything about the Edge of the Underworld sequence I love. So I do love Lupita Nyong'o's portrayal of her characters in this film as well. There is a lot of controversy surrounding Lupita Nyong'o's involvement as Helen of Troy in this film. Obviously you have like the alt-right on line and the fan bros online being like, no dark-skinned woman can ever be my Helen of Troy, you know, absurd. And then you have like the social justice warriors on the other side being like, oh my gosh, why does the black woman casted have to be like portraying the woman who has the most strife of the film and things like that. It's just like everybody's being a little absurd. Like it's really not that serious in my opinion. And we're just doing too much. This film is not all of that. So I'm just like, there's like no reason for us to do all of that. And I also think that like everything that occurred in this film did no harm to anybody when it comes to Lupita Nyong'o. So we should just table all of that, or also just like, you know, burn it, extinguish all of that commentary. It doesn't need to occur in my opinion. So yeah. And last but not least, let's talk about like the most like, in my opinion, overhyped performance of the entire film, Samantha Morton as Cersei. Now, I don't think Samantha Morton did a bad job. So I'm not saying it's like overhyped because like it's not good, but everybody's walking away from this film and being like, Samantha Morton as Cersei, gosh, she's so good. She just did what needed to be done. And I'm like, I guess she did do what needed to be done, but for some reason, that whole like dramatic jump, like I was with Samantha Morton's performance of Cersei when she was just with the men and turning them into pigs. Like that was great. That whole sequence where like she's turning them to pigs and, you know, Odysseus is out on the other side of the shoreline, like getting the revelation of who Cersei actually is and all this stuff. Great. And then when Odysseus comes to her cabin or hut or whatever, and she's trying to feed him and all this stuff, cute, cute, cute. And then we get to this point where like she's like, oh, but you brought a dagger in, you thought like I didn't notice. And he's like, oh, you have a keen eye. And she like reaches for his dagger and like immediately like you know, goes for his throat where he grabs the crow or the raven. And she's like, no, don't do that. And it's like, it's very like emotional. Like it's a very emotional scene. I'm just like, how do we get there? Like, how do we get there? Like, how do we get there? And she's like, oh, y'all are all pigs, all y'all do. Like, okay, I get it. I get the purpose of all of that. I just don't think that it's just like this thing to rave about, just to be like, Samantha Morton, she is amazing. Like, I believe she's amazing, but like I got introduced to Samantha Morton when I was watching Walking Dead in high school. So I know she's amazing as an actress, but like in this film, like I just hate when like we try to do this thing because like there obviously is no performance in this film to rave about, and I feel like the easiest film to do that without pushback is Samantha Morton's performance. No offense, it may sound like I'm hating on her, but I'm not hating on her. I'm just being like, no performance in this film was something to rave about. And so like, I know I just sat here and like raved about Benny Safdie as Agamemnon, but like I said, like that was just me having a little crush. Like that's not me being like really, really serious. Like I'm not gonna go out in the streets and rave about that. But yeah, so those are all my opinions on the performances in the Odyssey. Now let's just go ahead and slide into award thoughts, right? Because we're just talking about performances and we're talking about awards and we know that this film's gonna get awards. Before I go into the awards talk, I just want to say it's July and there's people online actually making like Oscar prediction like statements right now. It's July and there are people who are making Oscar prediction statements right now. I want those people to stop. I want everyone who feels like they need to be the first person to go to get ahead of the curve, and be like, the Odyssey is gonna get nominated for the most awards this year. I told y'all, that's what they're gonna say. They're gonna be like, I told you back in July that the Odyssey was gonna get nominated for Best Picture. I predicted it. And it's like, duh. But why are you predicting that? Like, who are you getting points up on? Like, what confirmation bias are you getting from this? It just really doesn't make sense to me how like the Oscars race has become like this way like of virtue signaling for like cinephiles online. It's very frustrating. But let me give you my Oscar predictions. Okay, for the Odyssey, I predict that there's going to be 8 nominations minimum for the Odyssey at the Oscars this year. So I definitely think that Best Picture is in the bag. The Best Picture nomination is coming. I don't think they're going to win. I don't know if they're going to win at this moment. I'm not making any concrete predictions, but they're definitely going to get a nomination for Best Picture. If they get a nomination for Best Picture, they're going to have Best Director. If they get Best Director, that means they're going to have Best Adapted Screenplay as well. So that's 3 Oscars already. Now, if you have those 3 Oscars, you're going to need somebody in the acting category. So we already know Matt Damon is definitely going to get nominated for Best Actor. So that's 4. And then we have Anne Hathaway, who's going to get nominated, in my opinion, as well. I don't know if Anne Hathaway is going to get nominated for Best Lead Actress or for Best Supporting Actress. It might be a little category fraud to do Lead Actress, so it just might be Supporting Actress. That's fine. However, this is not in my predictions, but I do think that there's going to have to be like a wild card acting nom for the Odyssey as well. And I don't know if it's going to be another man or another woman. I feel like it might be Samantha Morton, given that like the critics' reception to her performance has already been so vast. But she's only in the film for like, can she even be a supporting actor? Like, can she be a supporting actor? After Isabella Rossellini in Conclave happened, like anybody can be a supporting actress, I guess, now nominee. So I would just say like potentially there's gonna be like a 3rd or 4th wild card. Tom Holland getting nominated? No. If Tom Holland was to get nominated for supporting actor, that would mean that there's really nothing going on this season for people to like nominate, and the Academy actors and like voting body were just like, let's go ahead and give it to Tom. So, or like give Tom a nomination, I would say. They're not giving anything to Tom as an award. But the other 3 nominations I believe that the Odyssey is getting is Best Score. Ludwig is going to get nominated. I don't know if he's going to win. Ludwig already has 3 Oscars, I believe, for Best Score. And so he's definitely going to get a nomination. Production design, I feel like they got that in the bag. They're going to definitely get a nomination for production design. And I think visual effects and makeup, they're definitely getting for the Cyclops sequence. So we have 8 nominations going on there. And then since I already mentioned the Cyclops piece and getting nominated for that, we can just go ahead and go into my technical thoughts of the film. I think like my high level technical thoughts for this film. Okay. I think the Cyclops sequence is a testament to the quality of the technicality in this film. Which is amazing. Like I think the whole entire Cyclops sequence is amazing. As I said a few minutes ago, I think the Edge of the Underworld sequence is amazing as well. I think the Fall of Troy sequence is really good. I like the lighting that's occurring there. I like the choreography that's occurring there. Action set piece in totality. I know there's like 3 different sequences for the Fall of Troy. Love every single one of them in my opinion. Everything else is simply fine in this film. Like nothing's done horribly in this film from a visual perspective. I think like the Cyclops in the water scene is like, you could tell it's CGI. Like, you could tell it's CGI. But also like it kind of gives like those days, like I don't know if you've ever been out on the water and like you're near the shoreline, but if it's blazing sunny and the water's reflecting in the sun like crazy, everything turns chrome, like how that scene is. The scene is very chromey, and I feel like that's kind of very realistic. I also think like the whirlpool sequence, like that's definitely like obviously not real. It's not even near being real in my opinion, but it doesn't look corny or tacky, so I guess it's just perfectly fine. Sound and score. So I have not listened to the score for this film. I didn't walk away from this film having any thoughts about the score or the score of this film. I'm trying to think. If I try to think really hard, my thoughts on the score of the Odyssey. Okay. So when they're on Cersei's Island, the only thing I can remember about the score of this film, when they're on Cersei's Island, I love the score for that whole entire sequence because when Cersei is up there turning the men into pigs and Odysseus is hunting the deer, that whole entire score that's occurring there when he has a revelation where like he shoots the deer and then it turns into a man and he has a revelation like Cersei is like, there's like a witch or like something going on, like his men are in danger. That whole entire score sequence, lovely. And like if I go and listen to the score like in the coming days or something, I probably would try to look for that Cersei one first and see what that is, and then maybe I'll just start from top to bottom. I think that's what you're supposed to do with the scores, but that's my opinion on the score. When it comes to sound, what I will say is that I saw this film for the first time in Dolby Cinema. I'm a Dolby Cinema girly. I go see everything in Dolby Cinema if possible. And then I saw it for a second time in IMAX 70mm. Now, when I saw it in Dolby Cinema, the sound was, I would say, like 10 times better than what the sound was when I saw it in IMAX 70mm. Why is that? I don't know. What I will say is that the Odyssey probably was the most paid off, in a positive way, like the most paid off Dolby Cinema viewing I've had this decade, in my opinion. Like the sounds that I was hearing during my first viewing of the Odyssey in Dolby were amazing. And then to go to IMAX 70mm and try to see like what the hype is about, and just really to find out that it's really just like a visual like experience. Like it's just like you just have it on the biggest screen possible, and like everything possible to see is seen here, which I don't really care about that much, obviously, because even in this film, like changing formats, like, okay, yes, I now get to see the entire sea. I now get to see the entire sky. I now get to see the entire height of the Laestrygonians is what they're called, and I now get to see like, you know, the entire field and all this stuff. It's like, oh, good, I guess. Like the whole entire like you know, craze around IMAX 70mm really doesn't land on me. I'm just a Dolby girly at heart. Like I'd rather go see Dolby. Like give me Dolby. I think the only films I want to see in IMAX like specifically are Dune, because I think Dune is shot in a way that like I want to see the full desert in that film. So that's just my opinions on the sound of this film. Overall, I'm not extremely high on this film, but I'm definitely satisfied with this film. I think this is a good film. Anybody who is high on this film, I'm not going to like shut them down. Now, if anybody's saying like this is the best film of like the year or the decade or whatever, like I'm gonna be like, But I think what I got from this film was great, and I think this film is a great addition to Christopher Nolan's entire filmography. And speaking of, I also do want to go ahead and rank Christopher Nolan's filmography on the channel. So we can go ahead and jump right into that as well. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this ranking, only because I've already like, you know, had y'all for a lot of time, and I know I've done a lot of rankings, or not a lot. I've only done like what, 2 rankings before, maybe 3 rankings. I can't even remember. I've done Gregor Rocky. I've done I've done Gregor Rocky, Paul Thomas Anderson, and I feel like I've done somebody else's ranking as well. I can't remember right now. But I'm going to add this ranking to the list as well, and we're just going to like speed through it too. All right, at number 13, we have Tenet, okay? Tenet is by far Nolan's worst film in my opinion. I know that there's so many Nolan bros who like rave about Tenet. I am not understanding what y'all are putting down. John David Washington is failing me on every single front with this film. 2 weeks ago when I watched this film, I was like, I just don't understand what was supposed to be conveyed through John David Washington's performance of this film, like at all. He's not charismatic, he's not funny, he's not really somebody I want to look at that much. He's not acting well. I think the writing surrounding his character was very flawed. I think it was very built on persona. I think like somebody who has a lot of charisma needed to be in that role, and they weren't. I also think Robert Pattinson in that film is being wasted. It's also like the worst time conflict like concept in Nolan's entire filmography, if that makes sense. Like that whole like man versus time, you know, motif of Nolan films, I feel like it's just executed on the lowest of levels ever in Tenet. And so that's why Tenet is always going to sit the lowest possible. Now, Tenet is also, the cinematography in Tenet is also done by the same cinematographer of the Odyssey, Hoyte. And if I'm saying his name right, apologies. And I think Tenet looks good. I think Tenet looks really good. But like, it's so bad in every single other aspect that like its visual quality literally means nothing to me. So Tenet is going to remain at the bottom at number 13. At number 12, we have Memento. Now, I know a lot of people love Memento. There's a lot of Memento heads. Nothing against Memento, really, but it's just like nothing about this film really stuck with me. When I was watching it 2 weeks ago, I was just like, okay. And then when we got to like the revelation, I was like, oh, I mean, okay, like, okay. It's just very like okay to me. Like I'm just like okay, and I think a lot of nostalgia is embedded in people's love for this film, but I'm not gonna go too deep in that, right? And also like it's starring young Guy Pearce, and Guy Pearce is great, but then I read up that like Brad Pitt was supposed to star in that film, and I feel like if Brad Pitt was starring in Memento, it would be 5 places higher than it is right now. I think if Brad Pitt did Memento literally right after he did Seven, like whoa, that would have been a crazy run. I think if Brad Pitt did Memento, Brad Pitt's career would probably look a little bit different too. Like people would think about Brad Pitt's career a little bit differently than they currently think about it, right? At number 11, we have Insomnia. Now, Insomnia is right up my alley in terms of like, it is a crime thriller. I love crime thriller films. And so it also has like Al Pacino, of course, and I love Al Pacino. But there's not much in this film that like pays off, in my opinion. So it's compelling, but then it's also like something that I would never go to bat for because there's just so many like flaws with like the continuity of the film. I want to say like I don't know how to really describe like my issues with Insomnia. It just doesn't really meet. It's like really doesn't meet the mark in more ways than none. And I think like the little parts that I like about it just aren't enough I like the essential parts, I would say, not even little parts. Like, I love Robin Williams as an actor, and Robin Williams in this film is doing great. I think Al Pacino is doing fine. I mean, there is a lot of like Al Pacino like sitting in a hotel room and like, you know, sweating and like can't go to sleep, insomnia, hence the title. But it's also just like, I like my Al Pacino very in your face and like abrupt and abrasive. Like, I like my heat Al Pacino. I like my cruising Al Pacinos. I don't like my insomnia Al Pacino, right? And then also you have Hilary Swank here, who's like the lead actress here, and like Christopher Nolan, he really doesn't know what to do with like women characters. I don't really understand it, but that's not what I want to say about Hilary Swank here. I want to say that like I didn't not understand that this was Hilary Swank in this film until like 40 minutes into the film. I literally started watching this film and was like, oh, Julia Gardner. I was like, Julia Gardner. I was like, oh, Julia Gardner's doing great here. And then I was like, oh, wait, that's not Julia Gardner. I was like, that's Julia Roberts. And I was like, oh, wait, that's not Julia Roberts. I was like, that's Hilary Swank. I was like, oh my gosh. And so it was just like, not even Hilary Swank's character really could touch me because I didn't even know I was looking at Hilary Swank. So at number 10, we have Following. All I want to say about The Following is that it's just like a very cool debut film, and I find it way more interesting than the past 3 films. Like, I find Following way more interesting than Tenet. I find The Following way more interesting than Memento. I find Following way more interesting than Insomnia. Following is in black and white, and I think Following also, it just displays all of these motifs throughout Nolan's filmography in like a very pure, raw, and like genuine way. And maybe it's because like his first film and he like just did it to like the fullest extent that he wanted to do it at the time. And I think maybe after that he started holding back in different aspects because he's making different types of films and things like that. But I think all of that, like, you know, man versus time concepts and like jumping between time and all the revelations between his characters within that film are just done like in a very cool, unique way. And I really value it that much. Like, I would really rewatch Following if it was available on streaming. It isn't, and you have to pay again to rent it. I'm not going to do that. But if it was on streaming, I would have been rewatched a few times by now. At number 9, we have Batman Begins. So when I haven't rewatched Batman Begins since I was a little kid, right? I really haven't rewatched Batman Begins since maybe I was like 10. And rewatching Batman Begins a few weeks ago, I really was watching like on my couch and being like, wow, Nolan really is the king of this comic book movie shit, bruh. Like, Nolan is really the father of this comic book movie adaptation stuff. Like really, like, you watch Batman Begins and every single comic book movie origin story is like mimicking what Nolan was doing there. And I don't know if Nolan was mimicking somebody else, I don't really care. Nolan set the tone, in my opinion, because it also set the tone for, you know, the most iconic comic book movie film to date, which we'll get into in a second. And Christian Bale is here in Batman Begins. He's great. He's also very hot. I was like, wow, Christian Bale is very hot. And he's also very charismatic in this film. Lovely, wonderful, scrumptious. Cillian Murphy is also starring in this film as Scarecrow. And this is like the first film, I believe, between Christopher Nolan and Cillian Murphy's like duet of film creation. And which, like, you know, we're going to talk about further. But I find Batman Begins very, you know, enjoyable. And it's just going to sit at number 9 because I think like it's just like a perfectly enjoyable film. And I don't really have a lot of notes for it. Any notes I would have would just be being picky as like, you know, a comic book fan and things like that. At number 8, we have The Dark Knight Rises. Okay, The Dark Knight Rises is so juicy. Like, it's so juicy. Like, I've seen The Dark Knight Rises 1,000 times. And every single time, like, the energy is just there, y'all. Like, the energy is just there. I don't know what to say. Like, it really is just there. Like, Nolan really did his big one with The Dark Knight Rises. As a conclusion to a trilogy, especially. And after, like, following up The Dark Knight, like, it's just such a good sequel, in my opinion. And it's just... it's so buzzy. Everything in between Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne in that film is so buzzy. Anne Hathaway, amazing. Like, Anne Hathaway, honestly, like, I'm sorry, when we rate Catwoman, I know everybody likes to do Michelle Pfeiffer. I know everybody likes to do that, but Michelle Pfeiffer is not my number 1 Catwoman. I oscillate between, I really want to say Anne Hathaway's Catwoman might be my favorite Catwoman. If I'm being honest, yeah, that might be true. I do love Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman in the Batman, though. Like, I kind of oscillate between them two. And maybe it's like recency bias, but also I'm just young. I'm young. Like, I'm not going to gag over Michelle Pfeiffer's like Catwoman right now. Like, granted, great. Also, respect to Eartha Kitt. Like, you know, respect to all the Catwomen. But I find that Anne Hathaway's portrayal of Catwoman in this film is so delicious. And also you have Christian Bale here again. He's so hot. Again, he's so charismatic and he's such a great actor. Love that. And then you have Tom Hardy here as well as Bane. And I really like Tom Hardy's Bane. I know a lot of people don't, but I do. I also like think we have to note that like Tom Hardy's Bane really like changed Bane's life. Like, really changed Bane's life in, like, you know, the zeitgeist. Like, Bane pre-Tom Hardy and Bane post-Tom Hardy are like two different conceptions of like the character of Bane, in my opinion. Like that voice whole thing, like with Bane, like I don't think that really was like a thing pre-Dark Knight Rises. And now post-Dark Knight Rises, every iteration of Bane has made a joke in regards to like the funny voice, like all of that. So I think it's really impactful. So the film is going to sit at number 8 for me. At number 7, we have Dunkirk. Okay, so I know a lot of people will be like, whoa, Dunkirk at number 7, like what's going on? But I do think Dunkirk is the best Nolan film visually. I think visually this is the best Nolan film. There's not a film of Nolan's that looks better than Dunkirk. There isn't. Also, I do love Jack Lowden. He is in this film. I'm a big Slow Horses fan, so seeing Jack Lowden here is great. Love seeing him here. I love Tom Hardy. Love seeing Tom Hardy here. I love Cillian Murphy. Love seeing Cillian Murphy here. Baby Barry Keoghan is here. I don't really care for Barry Keoghan, but I do care about like early term Barry Keoghan, and so I love that as well. I think all the action set pieces are great. However, this just like isn't a story. Like, this isn't a story. This is like just like, you know, an action war film, in my opinion. Like, it's just not enough meat on the bones for me to be like, this is better than some other films of his, because like those have like full packages. This is not really a full package. This is like a small mini package. And that mini package has everything you would want that's present in the mini package. Like, there's visuals in this mini package, everything you want is visuals in this mini package. There's star-studded cast, everything you want is a star-studded cast. There's, you know, exhilaration and anticipation and, you know, your heart pumping, all of that's in the suitcase, but everything else is outside of that, not in the suitcase. And I think if I just like take this little mini suitcase and hold it close to my heart, that's where Dunkirk will sit. And so Dunkirk is going to sit at number 7, which is close to my heart. At number 6, we have Inception. Okay, yes. So Inception is like perfectly fine. Like, Inception is really good. Like, I understand the Inception hype. However, every time I walk away from Inception, y'all, I literally like look out the window and I ask myself, like, was that stupid? Like, was that film stupid? And then I think about it for like a few days and I'm like, was it stupid? Was it not stupid? And then like I give up. And I feel like that conflicting feeling and like mentality about that film is enough for me to just sit it right outside of the top 5. Like, I'm sitting right outside of the top 5. You're at number 6. We're right outside of the top 5. I also like, it's the only film of Nolan's that leaves on a cliffhanger. Like, Nolan is known to, his third act is triumphant for the main character. In this film, people always like contemplate whether the main character, Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Inception, can't remember his name right now, is still in like the dream world or whatever, or if he's in real life. Now, given the precedent of, you know, Nolan leaves his characters off in a triumphant state, we can go ahead and just assume that it is real life and like he gets his kids back, cool, all of that. But if we want to be like quirky and be like Nolan was trying to give like a little quirkiness at the time, maybe he's in a dream state. Don't know. And I think that like cliffhanger is not making me feel well about this film. Also, I just don't think the concepts of what's going on in this film, like with the time and all of that stuff, really is that intriguing as a lot of people make it out to be. Now, I did not see Inception until I was like literally like 16, 17. And I know a lot of people who saw it back in like, 2010, like really, really, really raved about it then. So maybe if I had saw it in theaters, maybe I would feel a different way about it, but I've only ever seen Inception on the TV, so maybe that's the issue with it too. I just wasn't there for it, and maybe you just had to be there for it. But given I wasn't there for it, it's going to sit here at number 6. Okay, now we're in top 5. And at number 5, we're gonna have The Odyssey. Now, I've already spoken about The Odyssey, and I already said all my thoughts about it, so like, that's all I'm gonna say. On a good day or bad day, I could swap Inception and The Odyssey, honestly. I think The Odyssey is going to sit right at number 5. Because I think The Odyssey is occurring on like a high level for Nolan, like in terms of his filmography, but like it's not like his best, in my opinion. Anybody saying like The Odyssey is the best is lying. They're lying. And it's not top 3. So stop that. Cut that out. I'm going to sit at the top 5, just to be generous. Like, it might be recency bias, but just to be generous, I'm going to sit at the top 5. I think it's a great epic. It's his epic film. I think he's done the epic film. I think he's done it well, and it's going to sit at number 5. And then, like, you know, a year or two from now, or in 2030 when we get his next film, it might slide down, it might slide up. Who knows? So it's going to sit at number 5 until then. Okay, so like, obviously, if you know Nolan's filmography. You already know the last 4 films left. At number 4, we have Interstellar. Okay, so yeah, Interstellar is just at number 4. Like, I really have nothing to say about Interstellar. Interstellar is just a really concrete, solid, good film, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are like, Interstellar is just so long. Interstellar is not really that long. Interstellar is like Nolan's like 5th longest film. And maybe you're saying like, oh, the story just drags out. But in my opinion, it doesn't really drag out. Like, I really like what he's doing with the concept of time there, because like Nolan taking his motif of like man versus time, but also applying it to like space, where space is like this, the concept around space in film is always around space and time. So it's kind of like he's like doing that thing where it's like he's using the inherent perception of a certain concept, like he did with Tom Holland in the Odyssey, and allowing the audience to like funnel themselves into that to like kind of like shoo their way into whatever concept he's trying to get us to understand. And so I found immense value in Interstellar. Also, I'm just an Anne Hathaway enjoyer, so I think Anne Hathaway is utilized perfectly in Interstellar. I think her performance is great in Interstellar as well. I think Matthew McConaughey is doing fine. Timothée Chalamet, you know, his first feature film, I believe, is Interstellar. So, you know, it's iconic for a few different reasons. You have Jessica Chastain in that film as well, I believe, who is playing Matthew McConaughey's daughter, Murph, and she's doing fine in that film as well. And at the end, you know, the humans get to another place and, you know, humanity lives on. So I like it. It's a very satisfying film for myself. So I'm going to sit it at number 4. Okay, at number 3, we have The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is just iconic. Like, that's all I have to say. The Dark Knight is sitting at number 3 for me because, like, it's very iconic, but honestly, The Dark Knight was the least fun I had upon rewatch with all the Batman films. I had the most fun with Dark Knight Rises, and I had more fun with Batman Begins than The Dark Knight. I don't know if it's because I literally have watched The Dark Knight 1,000 times, and I understand every single line that's going to be said, every single thing that's going to occur. I didn't really, like, have any visceral reactions to The Dark Knight outside of like the funniest scene ever in the whole entire Dark Knight trilogy, which is when Harvey Dent's in the hospital and the Joker comes in the mask and he's like, "Who are you?" And then when he pulls the mask off, which is like, you can obviously hit his makeup, he pulls the mask off and then Harvey Dent's like, "Ah!" Like, it's so funny. It's such a funny like sequence. That's so good. And then, you know, R.I.P. Heath Ledger, of course. It's just a very iconic film. It has to sit in top 3. It's like, it is Nolan's most iconic film. I don't think there's a debate by that, and there shouldn't be a debate about that. That is Nolan's most iconic film. I think anybody who doesn't have The Dark Knight in top 5, you're I don't know what you're doing. All right, so we're down to our top 2. At number 2, we have Oppenheimer. Now, Oppenheimer. Controversial film for a lot of people. A lot of people don't mess with Oppenheimer, but I do, and I think it's because that third act of Oppenheimer is make it or break it for a lot of people. If you don't like the third act of Oppenheimer, you don't really rate Oppenheimer high. But I love that third act of Oppenheimer, so I rate Oppenheimer high. That third act of Oppenheimer really brought me, it zoomed me in the movie theater, and I love all of the molecular chemistry visuals that occur in that film as well. Benny Safdie's also in that film, so maybe that's why I got it this high. Who knows? Cillian Murphy giving a great performance in that film. I think Cillian Murphy deserved his award. I think Oppenheimer deserved to win Best Picture that year. Did it? It did. I think so. So I rate Oppenheimer very high. I think it's one of just like the best highly executed films by Christopher Nolan in his entire filmography, but not above the number 1 film, which is The Prestige. Now, The Prestige, I've watched The Prestige like literally 15 times. Like, I know, like, I like, The Prestige is everything I want out of film, but it's really everything I want out of a Nolan film. And I don't know if he'll ever be able to recreate that. You have Christian Bale here, on fire. You have Hugh Jackman here, on fire. You have this revenge plot story, on fire. You have trickery going on fire. You have deception going on fire. You have Scarlett Johansson here. She's giving a British accent, which is not on fire, but Scarlett Johansson, on fire. You have poetry, on fire. You have, you know, Colorado, and then you have the UK. Love that. You have this daddy-daughter dynamic going on as well. That's very compelling. Love that. You have the love triangle that's going on. Love that. You have the loss of Christian Bale's character's wife in this film. Hate that, but love that. Then you have like it's just like everything about this film is just like so memorable for me and so close to my heart. That's why it's at number 1. It's always going to be there. I'm a Prestige guy. I'm a Prestige head. If you're a Prestige head, you know, you found your community in me. High five. Like, yeah, Prestige, number 1. And that's my ranking for Christopher Nolan's filmography. Now, I know I've talked y'all's head off for the past, like, I don't know how long, but I do want to just go ahead and insert this new segment into the video and start having this in my videos more often. It's called the FIT segment. Why is it called FIT? It stands for Film Industry Talk. And so this is Film Industry Talk. And so I think I want to do like 1 to 2 to 3 topics in every video now to give you like my insight on a few things that are happening in the film industry. Because I do know a lot that's going on in the film industry. I read up a lot about a lot of things, and I know y'all do too as well. And like, you know, I want us to have a little bit conversation, maybe be a little messy, maybe gossip a little bit. So let's go ahead and start off the FIT segment. Okay, first up on the list, we have Tony Gilroy's Behemoth trailer has dropped. Now, Behemoth is starring Pedro Pascal, Ava Victor, Olivia Wilde, etc., right? I'm very excited for this. I like Pedro Pascal, as y'all can tell if you saw all my videos from last year. So I'm excited for Pedro Pascal to be back in a lead role and like a non-superhero role. And I really hope that Tony Gilroy, who I trust so much, I believe Tony Gilroy is the writer behind Andor, which I think if you haven't seen Andor, go watch Andor. Andor is the best Star Wars media that has been created this century, in my opinion. And I want Pedro Pascal to really be able to thrive in this film. So I have a lot weighing on Behemoth. And so even though like there was no dialogue really in like the trailer, I do like what's happening. It's very Tar-esque, and I did like Tar. And so I hope that Tony Gilroy's writing on Andor and his quality there is kind of translating over here. And I hope Pedro Pascal is meeting the mark and giving us a great performance. Olivia Wilde, I just saw the invite. I'm gonna do a video on that. I love Olivia Wilde. And Olivia Wilde's in this, and she's like serving like in the trailer. So like, I'm like, yes, Tony, like give it to us. So I'm excited about that. The second thing I want to come and talk about today is Adam Driver and this like MCU talk. Like, there's been so much talk about Adam Driver being in the MCU. And when I hear that, like I'm not high on Adam Driver at all. I went to rehab and I got clean and I've been sober for my whole entire life. I'm just not a fan of Adam Driver. Like I just never been a fan of Adam Driver. Even when I was in high school and I was watching Girls, I was not even a fan of Adam Driver then. And I haven't been a fan of Adam Driver, I don't think ever, honestly. I can't even think of an Adam Driver film or performance that I really rate high. Like I just don't. And so all of this like Adam Driver is gonna be in the MCU talk is like, I know they're using that because they're trying to be like, oh, we're gonna bring prestigeness back to the MCU and serious actors and all this stuff. But I'm like, is Adam Driver serious? Like, is he a serious actor? Not in my eyes. So I'm like, let's keep him away, especially from the character of Magneto. Like, what? Now, I do like the idea that like we're gonna get Magneto and Charles Xavier like younger than we got them in like the Fox X-Men, but like a little bit older than we got them in, you know, the First Class X-Men. So I do like that. And lastly, I want to come and talk to y'all today about the Doomsday trailer that dropped. Now, I don't really want to talk about the Doomsday trailer. We already know what that was going to be. They're just reheating Infinity War, but with characters who we really don't care about and a plot line that we probably won't feel compelled about. But I wanted to talk about the MCU fandom's reaction to people not really like rating the Doomsday phenomena high. I wasn't somebody who rated that high when the trailer dropped, and people were irate about that. They didn't really like what I had to say, which wasn't really a lot. And I want MCU fandom and fans to start divesting from feeling like the perception of the MCU by the general public should matter to them. Like it shouldn't matter to you. And I want them to stop like acting like if you don't like the MCU, you're bitter and you know, you just are like very like pretentious and all of this stuff. No, the MCU has lacked quality for this entire decade. The MCU isn't you know, a machine it used to be. Kevin Feige's decisions are not as good as they used to be. Everything's going downhill, and you need to divest, or else you're going to end up like the millennial Star Wars fans who still act irate about every single down, negative, or you know, conflicting opinion about any Star Wars product that's coming out. Those people look crazy, and you're going to start looking crazy as well. So that's all I have to say on that. Okay, so I've, you know, yapped for a very long time, and I'm so thankful that you've made it this far into the video. Yeah, I hope those new segments are, you know, exciting. I hope that you like those new segments. I think they're kind of exciting. I'm trying to find better ways to make, you know, the conversations that I want to have on this channel, you know, more fun and more, you know, interesting for all of you. And so we're just going to keep evolving over here and adding new things. Maybe we'll cut things down. Who knows how things are going to go, but I hope you're all with me for the ride there. And you definitely tune in for the next conversation that we have in regards to whatever film I decide to talk about next, right? And as I always say, these are my thoughts, and I'm just a wannabe cinephile. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.